I'm a black homeless veteran. Cops targeted me at a diner. Until one phone call ended their career. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. The end. Don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
I still remember that morning like it was carved into my skin. The air was thick and quiet in a way that made me uneasy. I wasn't thinking about trouble when I woke up. I was just thinking about coffee, about warmth. I put on my jacket, the one that had been my shield for months now, and stepped out into the chill. It was an ordinary day, or at least it should have been. For years, I had been walking that same block. Every morning before the city really woke up, I found myself at the little diner on the corner. Nobody really noticed me there. I was a face they knew but didn't really see. I liked it that way. There was comfort in quietness. I would sit in the far corner, order coffee, watch the steam curl up in lazy swirls, and think about life. Life before this. Life before everything had changed. I was a soldier once. I wore my country's uniform with pride. I believed in something bigger than myself. But that life was gone. The uniform was gone. My home was gone. Now, I had nothing but these streets and a handful of memories. Memories that never stopped chasing me. That day, when I walked into the diner, something felt off. The hum of the coffee machine, the clink of silverware, the soft murmur of voices, it all felt heavier. Like the air itself was holding its breath. I didn't notice them at first, but then I felt it, the weight of eyes on me. I looked up, and there they were. 2 officers standing just inside the door. Boots sharp against the floor, badges glinting. They didn't smile, they didn't nod. They just stared. I kept my head down, trying to pretend I didn't notice. But something told me they were coming for me. My stomach tightened. My hands trembled slightly as I held my cup. The warmth of the coffee didn't reach me anymore. One of them stepped closer. His boots made quiet but deliberate sounds against the floor. My heart beat faster. I wanted to tell myself it was nothing, that I was imagining it. But then he spoke. "Ma'am, we need to talk." It wasn't a question. There was no tone of curiosity, no polite request, just a command that sent every muscle in my body stiffening. I looked around. People in the diner had stopped talking. There were curious glances, whispers I couldn't catch. My face flushed, not from the cold, but from something deeper. Shame, fear, confusion. Why me? Why here? I tried to speak calmly. I haven't done anything wrong. My voice was quieter than I wanted it to be. They didn't respond. Instead, they stepped closer, blocking my way. The diner felt like it was closing in. I was no longer just Alec Rose, a woman having coffee. I had become the subject of everyone's attention. The quiet spy I had claimed for so long had vanished in seconds. They accused me of loitering. Suspicion. A crime I didn't even understand. I tried to explain. I told them I was just here for coffee, that I hadn't meant to bother anyone. But it didn't matter. Their eyes didn't soften. Their voices were cold, clipped, sharp. They weren't here to talk. They were here to take control. I could feel my heart pounding harder with every word. This wasn't just about me anymore. I could see it in their stance, in the way the diner had gone silent. People were watching, but nobody was stepping in. Nobody was saying anything. I felt the need to do something. But what could I do? I was alone, outnumbered, and somehow, in that moment, I knew this wasn't just about loitering. It was something deeper, something that had nothing to do with the law. My hand went to my pocket. My fingers closed around the phone, warm against my skin. A sudden thought hit me: this call could change everything. But it could also make it worse. The officer leaned closer, their presence pressing into me like a shadow. The din of the diner seemed to disappear. Every heartbeat was loud in my chest. I looked at the phone in my hand. My mind raced, and then I made the call. I didn't know exactly what I was about to unleash, but I knew in that moment nothing would ever be the same. The moment my finger pressed the call button, the air in the diner changed. I felt it instantly, like a sudden shift in gravity. The officers stiffened. Their eyes darted between me and my phone. They didn't say anything at first, but their silence was louder than words. I kept my voice steady, though my chest felt like it was being squeezed. My hand trembled slightly, not from fear alone, but from the weight of what I was about to do. I wasn't calling for help in the usual way. No, this was different. This call wasn't just for me. It was something bigger, something I couldn't yet put into words. The diner seemed to shrink around me. The clatter of dishes, the hum of the coffee machine, it all faded to a muffled blur. All I could hear was my own breathing, fast and uneven. I felt every stare in the room. Strangers looking at me, curious, tense, some sympathetic, others suspicious. One of the officers took a step closer. His boots hit the floor like a judge pounding a gavel. "Ma'am, you need to put that phone away." His voice was low, firm, but there was an edge to it. An edge that told me they knew I was doing something they didn't want anyone to see. I didn't move. My eyes stayed fixed on the phone. My heart felt like it was pounding against my ribs, trying to break free. I could almost feel the tension in the air, thick enough to choke on. Every second stretched longer. I could hear a whisper of movement, someone shifting in their seat, a chair scraping softly against the floor. The second officer reached toward me but stopped short, looking at his partner. Their silence spoke volumes. Whatever they had planned wasn't working the way they expected. I could feel it in my bones. I glanced at the phone again. My mind raced. What if this call made everything worse? What if it pulled me deeper into something I wasn't ready for? But there was no turning back now. I had already started it. The officer finally spoke again, sharper this time. "Step away from the counter. Now." That was my breaking point. My instincts screamed at me to run, to escape. But I stayed. I stayed because I knew this moment was bigger than me. I knew that if I walked away now, whatever was happening here would just disappear into the silence of another day. So I stood there, phone in hand, my breath shaking, and I waited for what came next. From behind me, a quiet hum began. Phones. People pulling out their devices, recording, capturing the moment. The sound rippled through the diner, a strange wave of solidarity and tension. I looked up at the officers again. This time, there was hesitation in their stance. Something was changing. I could see it. My phone call wasn't just a call anymore. It had become a spark. And sparks, they have a way of turning into fire. The second the hum of phones started, the whole diner shifted. What had been quiet and tense suddenly became loud electric. Like everyone there was holding their breath at once, waiting for something to break. I could feel it too. The pull of every gaze on me, the officers, the whole room. It was like time had slowed down. One of the officers glanced toward his partner. Their words were quiet, but I heard enough. "She's calling someone. They're watching." The edge in his voice told me they knew this wasn't just another stop. It was turning into something far bigger. I stayed still, my phone pressed against my ear, my free hand tightening around my coffee cup. The warmth had gone cold hours ago, but I didn't care. My heart was pounding in my ears. I could hear the slight shake in my own voice when I spoke, but I pushed through it. "Yes, it's happening right now," I said quietly. Behind me, the whispers in the diner grew louder. "What's going on?" someone asked. Another voice said, "They can't just do that to her." I could almost feel the energy building, people leaning forward in their seats, drawn to this moment without knowing why. The first officer stepped toward me again, but hesitated. I could tell something in him was cracking. The certainty in their steps before was gone. They were no longer in control. They were reacting. And reacting means losing power. The officer's voice rose, sharp and tense. "Put the phone down now." His hand moved toward his belt, and my heart jumped. My mind screamed for me to run. But my body stayed rooted. This was the point where fear became something else, something dangerous. I glanced around again. I could see the fear on some faces, but also something else, anger. I could feel it building in the air. I knew they were all wondering the same thing I was wondering. Why was this happening? And why to me? I spoke again into the phone. Quieter now, but with determination. "It's happening. They're here, yes, at the diner." My voice shook, but I kept talking. The officers exchanged a glance I couldn't read. Then, without warning, the first one stepped forward, grabbing my arm. That was the moment everything exploded. My breath caught in my throat. The diner seemed to hold its breath again, every movement slowing down in unbearable clarity. I could hear someone gasping. Somewhere behind me, a phone clicked, recording. My instincts screamed at me to fight, to pull away. But there was something deeper anchoring me. It was the knowledge that this wasn't just about me. This was about exposing something that had been hidden for too long. They dragged me toward the door, my phone still in my hand, the screen glowing with an unknown witness on the other end. The tension was so thick I could almost touch it. People were watching, recording, waiting. And then, just before they pushed me out of the diner, I heard the voice of the first officer, low but sharp. "This is going to change everything." And I knew they weren't wrong. Because at that moment, everything inside me shifted. Fear became resolve. Silence became a movement. And my life, well, it would never be the same again. They pushed me out of the diner so fast I barely had time to catch my breath. The cold air hit my face like a slap, and I stumbled, my phone still clutched in my trembling hand. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. I could hear the muffled murmurs of people still inside, their phones still recording every second of what was happening. The officers shoved me toward their car, the sound of boots scraping against concrete echoing in the quiet night. My legs felt like lead, but my mind was racing faster than ever. I kept glancing over my shoulder. The diner lights were glowing, the voices inside still there watching, recording, bearing witness. They threw me against the side of the car. Pain shot through my shoulder, but I barely noticed. The officers were talking now, in low voices I couldn't catch. But their movements, they were tense, sharp. Something had changed. I could feel it. One officer pulled my phone from my hand. The screen went dark instantly, and my chest tightened. That phone was my proof, my voice, my record of everything that was happening. I knew taking it away wasn't just about stopping a call, it was about trying to erase what was unfolding. I tried to speak, but they silenced me before I could. One of them gripped my arm hard enough to make my vision blur. "You don't know what you're doing," he said. But I did. I knew exactly what I was doing. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for something much bigger than me. Suddenly, there was a noise sharp, loud, and impossible to ignore. Someone inside the diner shouted. A phone click. Another voice calling out. I could hear a chorus of whispers now, like an undercurrent rising to the surface. People outside began approaching, their footsteps quick and determined. The officer froze. I saw the shift in his face. This wasn't just about me now. This was about everyone watching. Everyone who had been holding their breath. Everyone who knew they were seeing something they couldn't ignore. Then, without warning, the world exploded around me. Cameras flashed. Phones streamed live. Voices shouted. I heard someone yelling, "Let her go." And it wasn't just one voice, it was many. The tension cracked like a thunderclap. My shoulder burned where I'd been shoved. My wrists hurt where they gripped me. But through it all, there was a strange clarity. This moment was the climax. Everything led to this point: the fear, the uncertainty, the injustice. This was the turning point. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them erase this. I wasn't going to be silenced. My voice, my story, it mattered. And even if they tried to take it away, the truth was already out there now. They pushed me to the ground. My breath left me in a rush. But my eyes stayed fixed on the diner, on the phones, on the faces watching. And I whispered almost to myself, this is bigger than me. This has to change. That was the moment I knew my life was about to change forever, and so was theirs. I lay there on the cold pavement for what felt like forever, my breath ragged, every muscle trembling. The voices around me became louder, a mix of shouts, camera clicks, and heavy footsteps. But there was one sound that stood out above everything else. The sound of truth breaking free. People were speaking up. People were watching. And something inside me shifted. The officers finally pulled me to my feet, but the weight of what had happened stayed with me. I could still feel their grips on my arms, still feel the way the air had gone thick with tension. But now, there was something else, an unshakable sense that this wasn't the end. Not for me, not for the story, not for anyone who had ever been silenced. They pushed me toward their car, but the crowd was not backing down. People stepped forward, their voices growing louder. "Let her go," someone shouted. Others began filming, shouting names, telling others what they had seen. It felt like a wave one that couldn't be stopped. I realized in that moment that this was no longer just my story. It had become something much bigger. As they shoved me into the car, I glanced back at the diner. I saw faces full of shock, anger, pain. I saw witnesses, and that gave me hope. I knew that whatever happened next, this moment was etched in their minds. And when enough people remember something, change can start to happen. The car door slammed, and the world outside grew distant. But inside me, everything was loud: the fear, the anger, the hurt, the resolve. This wasn't just about what they had tried to take from me. It was about what I could not let them take: the truth. Later, when I finally sat down somewhere quiet, I thought about what had just happened. About the way fear can turn into courage. About how one phone call, one moment of speaking up, can shift the balance of power. I thought about the injustice, about how easily it could be ignored if no one bore witness. And then I asked myself the question that still burns in my mind. How many more times will this happen before the world finally says enough? This wasn't just my fight. It was a fight for every voice that had been silenced, for every injustice swept under the rug, for every truth buried in fear. And I knew I couldn't stay silent. Not now. Not ever. Because when they tried to take my voice, I found something stronger. My courage. And that courage is what changes the world. So I'm telling you the story now. Not just so you'll hear it, but so you'll remember it. So you'll see it. So it can't be forgotten. And I have to ask again, if this happened to me, how many others have suffered in silence? The answer haunts me. And it should haunt us all.